webinar series, the face-to-face series. We are doing our second edition today, and we have here with us Mr. Ajit Balakrishnan, CEO Rediff. Before we start with the, requesting him to speak and asking all of you to pose questions, what I'm going to be doing is muting each of y'all so that there's no ambient noise when Ajit is going to be speaking. And when you all are going to be asked a question, you all will be you can unmute yourself.
Right.
Is that fine? So I'm just going to mute everybody, and as I'm muting, I'm going to invite Abhishek Kannani, who is co-chair of the IAA's webinar initiative. It's been a few months of good trial and error, figuring out what is the best platform to have this webinar series. So let's, without any further ado, let me hand over, shall we say, the mic, or over to you, Abhishek.
Thanks, Pradhiman. Dear friends, it's an honor to be presenting Mr. Ajit Balakrishnan, the founder and CEO of Rediff.com. I want to thank Ajit and all of you out there for participating in this hangout. Close to the heels of a successful inaugural webinar with Rajan Anandan of Google India last month, the International Advertising Association India chapter is happy to host the second webinar on the theme World Goes Digital. Today's event and the entire face-to-face webinar series is helping young professionals and others to learn more about the digital medium. We want to connect the youth and the experience with the changing world, and we want our events to have clear deliverables and well-defined takeaways. We want you to identify the growth drivers, the pain points, and the emerging solutions in the digital space to take advantage of the future. Ajit can distill all the change that we see in the digital environment and pull it down to specifics. Today, we are here to see the future of digital through Ajit's eyes. Ajit has all the answers, and without much ado, I would like him to take us through his journey in the digital space. Over to you, Ajit.
Okay, I don't know whether I have all the answers, but I think certainly we'll try and answer some of these things all together. There is little doubt that the internet has come a long way since all of us started messing around with this about 18 years ago. But I think by the way I look at it is it's often been a matter of surprise to me that the web technology and internet happened first in the media world. In earlier innovations like electricity and the steam engine did not happen first in the media world, they happened in industrial settings. So by some accident of birth, I think the internet first happened and took flight in the media world. Big media companies came to be built around it. And my suspicion is that very soon we're going to see the internet and web-based thinking penetrate areas like education, healthcare, and many of the what I call the less frivolous parts of human endeavor. So I think I, for one, am looking forward to that. Okay.
Great. Ajit, thanks for these opening remarks. And I'm going to, we have a panel of 9 people here. Kaushik Roy is going to be joining us in a bit. But let me ask Ajay, who runs a startup, a fairly successful startup called Badhai, to ask the first question. Ajay, over to you.
Hi, Ajit. Ajay here.
Ajay, you need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I just did that.
I can hear.
You hear me?
I can hear.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, my name is Ajay. I run Badhai, which is into gifting space. Now, my question to you is that since the digital media space is propelled in last 2-3 years with all the companies coming in and people spending money, the big ones are spending like anything. So how do you see new brands can fight with the big ones and then make their mark in digital media space?
You know, every giant killer has started out very small. I still remember Google in 2009, to the year 2000, which is not that long ago, was a tiny company. Its revenue in the year 2000 was $30 million or $35 million. So I think the successful ones that we have seen in the world of internet, throughout the world, not just in the United States. I could give you stories from China as well. tend to offer some combination of some consumer promise and a new and better technological way in which to deliver that. And people who do that can at all times have a chance to upset the giants of an industry. So, and on that I have no doubt whatsoever. The field is wide open at any time.
Right, right. Thank you so much.
Gaurav, you've run a successful social media marketing company and a technology company. Your question for Ajit?
Sure. Thanks, Pradyuman. Thanks, Ajit, for this opportunity. It's great to have a leader like you sharing his knowledge with us. The question I have is that you are one of the early pioneers, and you have seen the internet space grow from nothing in India to what it is now. And what I wanted to understand is that, have you seen any change in the customer behavior and expectations in this journey till now? And if you see that the behavior and expectations would change in the next 3 to 5 years?
My guess is that in India, and as you know, India is a very early stage of evolution of the internet, and the number of users in India who have unconstrained access to high-speed broadband, always on phone as well as on a PC, that number is very small. So what has really happened so far is probably about, I'd call about 10 to 12 or 15 million users in India have unconstrained access to the internet, which in relation to either our Indian middle class of 300 million, let alone a population of 1.3 billion, is a small group. So the people who are online today are the small, relatively privileged, mostly English-speaking and westernized group, and they tend to follow the trend. They're very tuned into what's going on in America, particularly. They're on the internet. The brand values are built around what they see on the internet. Now, I have a feeling that when the Indian user base goes from this, something had happened.
It's okay, we can hear you.
When it rises from this unconstrained 10, 12 million users to, let's say, 100 or 200 million users over the next 3 to 5 years, at that time, the more typical Indian is like to land up on the internet. First of all, the Indian internet may not be only in English. That's one piece which, one possible likelihood. Secondly, I think the kind of things that people do on the internet may be a little different. Of course, they'll do social things as well. Those of you who remember this, I think television used to be like this somewhere in the mid-80s. Till the mid-80s, there were only a few English channels. It was essentially Star, and Star Plus used to run the roost, running international programs, from the United States. And then some pioneers stepped in and broke the thing open. Subhash Chandra of Z was, I think, one of the first to do that. And today, English language television is a very small proportion of total. And the kind of idioms which are developed on television in India, in a sense, they're called sitcoms, but I think they're in a sense uniquely Indian. So some of those kind of things will happen. So today, I think it's a very early stage. Things like email and basic social message passing from one to the other, as in Facebook. Some of these very early applications take precedent. And then technology, in the early stage of all these industries, technology is very important. Like in the early stage of television, only a few companies knew how to broadcast in color. In the United States, NBC was one of them, and they became dominant. But soon, color television, both the manufacture of sets and the broadcast, became available generally. So I think the technology-oriented phase will continue probably for another 3 to 5 years. And after that, it will, like all media, it will be the blending of what happens. Some human thing, call it content or call it application, that blended together with the technological platform, then it will become a real media. I'm talking of the media applications of the internet.
Right. Ajit, we've also had questions coming in from a variety of people who couldn't make it today. So one of the questions is, when you started Rediff, what did you expect in terms of, in the sense of users, in terms of economic outcomes?
Like many entrepreneurs, there are many in today's hangout today. I didn't, and I did not then, and even today, think too much about the financial outcome of entrepreneurship. You see an interesting idea. I was fascinated by the possibilities of the internet. Where I was watching America Online, CompuServe, even before that. CompuServe was an entity which was we call it the Facebook of that era. And I was fascinated watching them experiment with this new medium. So it was for me fun. So I told Arun Nanda, my partner, that goodbye for 1.5 years or so. I'm going to take a little room somewhere in Fort and find out where this is going. So I think nobody didn't have the faintest idea of where this would go to. Just that even today it is very unclear to me where the internet is headed next. It's very, very unclear. I personally think that the era when technological tricks dominated the trade I think it's about to pass in a year or two. In fact, among the top 100 companies in the world, everyone has the same technology. There's nothing unique you can do. Because some people know how to do it at scale, and some people are in markets where there's a large number of sophisticated users. We have that problem in India. Early adopters, sophisticated customer group is very small. So, you can't easily test and make a worldwide impact because of that. But that will change soon. In my view, all that will change in the next 2 years' time.
Rediff itself has changed over the years. The homepage has evolved as such. Is that the way the times have changed?
I think recently we took on what everyone calls a tile look. I think essentially the web seems to be swinging towards being a visual medium. In the first 15, 10, 12 years, it kind of imitated the newspaper magazine paradigm, with lots of word, textual material, and, doing things for that. But our guess is, and I think, lots of you may agree, I think my guess is that it's swinging towards a visual metaphor. So that I moved to the tile look is basically swinging to the visual metaphor. There's a big swing towards video as well, but as yet nobody in the world quite knows how video on the internet will play out. One part of it's played out so far is that you have pirated content of well-produced stuff, and the second part is bloopers. Some celebrity being embarrassed, or the famous actress slips and shows, but nobody knows what will be the grammar of the 2 or 3 minute video. And I'm sure it will arrive, because in the early days of television, you did not have the half-an-hour sitcom. People played big films entirely on TV, but the sitcom arrived. The 30-minute sitcom broken into 3 segments of 9 minutes each with 3 minutes in between for ad. So something of that kind will happen for the 3-minute episode, 2 to 3 minute episode on TV, but we don't know what that is going to be. We're waiting some creative genius. It's not a technological breakthrough. Eisner of Disney, when he left Disney, founded a startup to do this 3-minute episodes, but he could not make a success of it. But something will happen there. I'm very sure about that.
Right. Thanks, Monil. You've with a digital media company, which is an advertising agency, which has turned into digital media, and Ajit has had a fairly good background with advertising. Do you have any questions for him?
My real question to Ajit sir is primarily the question that I keep asking myself, that what will be that low-hanging fruit that will make see, you correctly said that it's really a creative thought. Technically we're not, the universe is pretty much there, but some of these guys are still apprehensive. They still don't step on, they're still waiting for someone to make that first step so that they can join the bandwagon. And I keep asking myself, what really will make some of these, trendsetters, what will be that low-hanging fruit that will make sure that some of these guys start using this second screen that is there, which complements your TV viewing or your newspaper reading, but it's still not the primary source for any sort of communication with the audience. The customers are evolving over a period of time, and they are more receptive from audio to video to just visual, just photos as such. And now even user generated content is not really a hindrance anymore. But still, somewhere the consumption of it is limited as a second screen. And the moment people start thinking of this independently as a medium is when really all these new ideas will start coming into play. And I keep asking myself, what will be that one idea is? If you could just throw some light, what Indian as consumers could do here.
I have a feeling that
Great.
some of the barriers to entry, the reason why digital ad agencies and shops are not yet as big as the other ones, as big as television type thing, is because I think ad agencies is a group for moving, they tend to be very conservative. I am a co-founder of one, so I know. They tend to take, their best clients are typically the ones which are very large, and the clients who make products for mass media, conservative audiences. You know, be it a Colgate, be the Fusion's client for many, many years. I think the main market for them is outside the sophisticated metro audience. They quite don't, the internet doesn't make sense to them because their growth is now going to come incrementally from smaller towns in rural India. So big ad agencies tend to be full of such clients. If you're a telecom operator, your client will be one, the biggest client will be one who sells at possibly the cheapest price and again driving to get non-users to adopt. I think that's the reason why they're conservative, so they tend to be late adopters. But typically the ones who are likely to dump quickly are ones in financial services. They love to have the sophisticated urban audience. So I'd advise patience, don't give up. I think it's going to take 1 or 2 years. So I'd say between 2 and 3 years, we'll see the big bucks coming for the advertising from the internet.
I would vote for that.
Yeah. You have another question, Monil?
I will ask if I come.
Okay, all right. So, Ajit, you mentioned about technology, about things happening in other parts of the country. And not to say that Pune is, a small town, but we have Aditya Kuber who runs not a startup, but an established digital media company based in Pune. Aditya, you have a question for Ajit? Aditya, are you there?
Okay. I think it's probably his speakers.
Yeah, Aditya. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, Aditya, there's an X to your right top. I was stuck on the same thing.
Yeah. On the right-hand side top.
There's something which looks like a mic. You need to go and click on it. Got it?
Can't hear you, Aditya. Can't hear you. Do you want to just type the question in? And
They typing it?
yeah, you're muted. You need to unmute yourself, Aditya.
Yeah, he says, I'm muted, not sure what's happening. Okay.
Okay, so what's your question, Aditya?
No, he's not got.
So until Aditya sends the question, there's a question which has come in from somebody. I don't know, it requires some detail, but what problems do you face in online shopping service of Rediff, as there are many prominent companies there like Flipkart, Snapdeal, eBay, the same vertical?
Yeah, okay, I think the challenge, I'll talk to you about the challenge that all of us as a group face, and I'll talk to you about the challenge that we face. And as a group, there are a lot of good things going for Indian e-commerce, online shopping. One is that private equity has more or less withdrawn from organized retail. So if you're a young lawyer, for example, in Nagpur, and you see ads on television for high-end Samsung phones. Your local outlet doesn't have it. So you rush to online and you can get the latest and greatest gadgets and clothes and things online, which in smaller markets, local retail shops can't stock and support it. They don't have enough of a customer base. So that's a good part. That's a good part. So there is a sudden explosion last year to 2011 and 2012. My estimate's about $600 million of private equity funds were pumped into the Indian e-commerce sector across maybe about 50 companies, and that woke up the e-commerce industry in India. So when we were sleepily going around in a 10% growth rate a year since 1998, this injection of capital and excitement, I think, made us grow by 100% year on year for 2 years. So I think that's very good. So the good part is there's excitement about it. The not so good part is that the infrastructure around e-commerce is not yet developed. For example, if you have a credit card, you can use it to buy online quite easily. But if you use your debit card, the failure rates of debit cards on the internet tends to be close to 40 to 50%. Half the time the transaction doesn't go through, and the reason for that is for debit cards to work, the two banks must be communicated through a reliable internet high-speed line, and that kind of telecom, again, take an example as somebody with a debit card in Nagpur will have a tough time getting it, using it from Nagpur, because Nagpur-based banks may not be connected with our bank here in Bombay. So people are working on this problem. So debit cards today people have about 100 million Indians have debit cards, and there are only 8 million unique credit card users. So as soon as you can get the debit card infrastructure to work, e-commerce will jump up. The second part is that the cost of courier companies, 30 to 50 rupees for each delivery, is high in relation to the margin. So the economics are a little, the courier companies need to be much more efficient. They need to deliver things anywhere in India and make money at the price of no more than about 10 rupees a delivery. This is one of the reasons why some players in the e-commerce field in India have been tempted to, at the first step, go and put your own, say, delivery boy, 500 or 1,000 or 2,000. We've never done that, but I knew that's not economic at all. But some of them have done that to capture the imagination of the public, which if you really want to do a great customer satisfaction, you need to do that. But I think we could do with, there are some early startups which are doing a very good job of doing an e-commerce delivery, which is different from Blue Dart and others who have a hub and spoke model. E-com does not work on a hub and spoke model, So some of these are waiting to happen. As all things in India, these things take a little time, but it will happen. When it happens, it will happen very well. So e-commerce again is about 2 years or 3 years away from a gigantic boom, which will happen.
So we have Aditya's question here. Aditya, can you talk now? Are you still on mute? Okay, I don't think we can hear him.
I can see the question. How big a role do you see for video playing in the future on the internet? There is no doubt at all. I was just running some of our own figures in the last 10 days or so. You find that some video item will always be among the top 5 things watched on our site nowadays, almost every day. Video's big advantage in India is it jumps over the language barrier. If it is text, you are restricted to a small group of people who can read and are very at home in English. Okay, and Indian language-based internet is not taken off at all. But with video, you leap over that. In other words, with video, you address the full audience. So I think video is terrific, and our salespeople keep telling me this last month that advertising agencies have woken up to their slumber about the internet, and they love video because video pre-roll is something they understand. It's like an ad before a television program or an ad before a cinema. So the ad agencies in Bombay and Delhi are jumping into advertising on video. So that's a good thing. So video is destined to be successful, but I want you to watch out for Aditya. Currently video which works is either bloopers or legit content which is pirated, or legit content which the big the old media houses give you, and they ask you for 50% share of revenue. So all three are not very great business models. So I think maybe what if you could, people like you could innovate and create 2 to 3 minute segments on video which are creatively sparkling, but can be made for no more than 2-3 lakhs each. That may spark a video revolution. If you do a real hit video in India, you could go to as far as maybe even 50 million users overnight, because if you make it light enough, many high-end phones are capable of downloading it, even if it takes half an hour to download, and then watching it locally. So if I were you, I'd be very excited and do some really original things on video.
But the kind of stuff that we've had on video, working on video, is essentially films and assorted spoofs and girly pictures, etc.
Yeah.
So, do you think
it's the absence of creativity which is causing that? Here again in the United States, when television first arrived, the most popular show was I Love Lucy, and I Love Lucy came from radio. It was very successful on radio, so they redid it again. So I think the internet videos 2 or 3 minute creative breakthrough has not happened. I keep watching for it everywhere. It's likely to come from China or Japan or Korea. It won't come from the United States, I know, for a variety of political, economic reasons.
Right. Okay, we have here Narsiman, who runs a content company essentially into technical writing. Narsiman, you have a question for Ajit?
Here's a muting problem as well.
Yeah, you are on mute, Ajit. Narsiman.
Hi, Ajit.
Yeah, got it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. As Pradyuman rightly said, I manage a technical documentation company. We write manuals and online help for software as well as hardware. My question to you is, as a startup, when you started off young and when Reader was a small company, our company is relatively small even now. I have a challenge, and I wanted to ask you as to how you address the challenge when you were small, when Reader was small. We get good talent, and but once they learn, after a year or two, the MNCs, the larger companies, they grab them, and we constantly lose good people. And how did you meet this challenge? What did you do?
Look, this is not a new problem. If anyone who's done any startup or any, as a matter of fact, run any enterprise, particularly in Bombay, it's out now in Bangalore and Delhi as well, where there are plenty of jobs and lots of talented people mingling together. This challenge is not just for startups. You will continue having this at any time, or at all times in your life, or in any stage that you have. When you grow a little bigger, things like stock options hold it, are technical ways of holding things back. But I think I found that there is a pattern among people that you recruit. There are some who love the idea of doing innovative work, some who like security, some who like the thrill of changing jobs every year. There are guys around my age who are 60-something who I know, who are with me at IIM, who have changed about 20 jobs in the work life of 30 years. So there are some congenital job changes. How can you track this? It's hard to tell. Well, check with a person. People have changed the job every 18 months, and the chances are that they'll join you and change again. I think those are things you cannot control. But at all times, try and get an anchor group of 4 or 5 or 6 people with whom I think who are critical to the success of a business. Make them partners in some kind or the other. It's not just a financial partnership, but also the way you consult them and take the views into account when you make decisions. People feel very involved about that, and if possible, reserve some portion of your equity to that core group. The risk again is who you think is a core group today may not be your core group 5 years from now. So I think Well, I'd say I think we have very early stage have had a stock option scheme here, but that's not doesn't work in every industry. It heads in industries where you have an option of a IPO 4, 5, 6 years down the line.
Right.
But I can promise you that hiring and retaining talent is a 24-hour job and will remain at all stages of your life, not just as a startup.
Do you face this challenge even now?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, without a doubt. I think one, retention is one piece, but more important than that, if the whole world switched towards making mobile apps, for example, then you need to restaff yourself with mobile app developers. You did 4 years from now, it is not necessary.
Right.
So one is retention, the other is getting new talent with new skills. We have come to a scale when we need we invested in Hadoop and those kind of highly scalable delivery infrastructure, but that keeps changing all the time. So you'll need to attract new talent and keep them. And I think devote half your time to it. So it helps.
I'll do that. Thank you. Thank you.
Do you have a related question?
Pardon me?
Monil has a related question, he said.
So my question really is that in the online medium, content, as you said, creativity in the content is very critical for it to gain mass. But how do you mass produce a content like this? Because it's still a creative process. It still needs its time and the complete thorough thinking, and that kind of orientation in the digital space is very limited to some people who have by choice moved into this domain or are probably in excess in other domains, so they have moved on to internet. So while the thinkers are very, very few, how do I mass produce this? So unlike television where you create bulk of content and you probably use only 1.5 minutes or 3 minutes or 20 minutes of it depending on the format, because advertising in space, in digital space, is not so consumed. How do you mass produce something like this?
You don't need to mass produce it, Manil. I think you're talking about it, since putting all these questions together, there's interest in a 2 to 3 minute video which will become a hit on the internet.
Correct.
What does it cost to produce a 2 to 3 minute video? I think I can produce almost any one of that for you for 3 lakhs to 5 lakhs. At most, a string of 6 videos, where the idea is more important than the grand production. Unfortunately, television ads, which I know something about, is come to a ridiculous point where there are almost no ideas, where they cost 1 or 2 crores to produce. I think it's laughable. So those guys have got into such a crisis. But you need an idea, but nobody knows what idea works. I mean, you're in a situation similar to what Charles Dickens was. Rather, the book publishing industry was in the 1830s. Nobody knew how to have a big hit. Then Charles Dickens came and said, here's my book, Great Expectations. I'll show you how to write a novel. So there are hundreds of imitators after that. You need those kind of creative geniuses. We're all waiting for one. So maybe you're the next guy. Who knows?
Okay. I know Gaurav has a question, but I'm going to first go to Abhishek. You have a question for Ajit?
Hi Ajit, hi again.
Yeah.
So in India, most of the ad revenue goes to the global top 5 websites, which is almost to the tune of about 70-75%. So what is left for everyone is a very small pie. So how do you overcome this challenge, Ajit?
In advertising has this kind of winner take it all thing. It's not just on the web. If I think you come from a newspaper family, so you should know that. I think in newspapers, for example, easier to understand. In Bombay City, whoever is number 1 typically takes 60% of the revenue. Number 2 probably takes another 20. Number 3 to 10 barely hang in for sentimental reason. All the others hang in for prestige reasons and lose tons of money. This is now becoming true for television as well in India. I think the top 2 or 3 channels or houses take about 70% of it all. So media has this unfortunate winner-take-all type situation, partly because audiences tend to gravitate towards what is the most popular. And what is most popular is a socially constructed phenomenon. It's not based on any objective criteria. So the internet as well has similar, at the moment, change. That will change as it evolves. I think the more creative people who mix creativity and the technology platform together will win. So I think at each of these junctures, when things change, that's your opportunity to move in. And people have done that. We've seen Facebook. I've said Facebook 10 years ago, you would have said, who's there? So they saw an opportunity and they went inside there. So you have one too. You have one. I've seen many creative companies. Mind you, China is more protected than we are as a country, an international country. But the Koreans have created many dramatic successes, many. So I think it is possible. So I think first you need to get the audience, and then you will get the revenue. Audience is 1% of the total. Your revenue will be 0.5% of the total. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Gaurav, you have another question?
Yeah, thanks, Pratibhanji. So I wanted to come towards this. One of the goals we had with this webinar series is to increase the digital pie or the digital ecosystem in India. And we have been lingering around 4 to 5% media spends. The user base is growing at a consistent pace. But as readers, have you taken on any special efforts to increase the ecosystem at a faster pace? And if you've identified some things which we as the players in the same industry can help increase the pie of this ecosystem.
I think if you're discussing the advertising pie, not the subscription pie, let's assume that. And on the advertising pie, my sense is the big ad agencies who control 90% or 95% of spends in India, the big 20 agencies and the media buying houses connected with them, would probably control 90% of the ad spend. I think they're looking for ideas. You pitch big ideas to them, and one of them succeed, they'll all copy the others. All the others will copy. Lobbying and industry efforts. If each one of us can produce one success story for a brand, by using the internet and related things, they got a wild runaway success. All the other happen, and overnight the pie will increase tenfold. I promise you that. I've seen this happen in certainly when creative advertising came around in 1973 for print, in 1980s for television, and outdoor happened. And everyone's waiting to see, how do I do it? Everyone's talking, but not many have seen a big success story. And once they see that, it'll happen overnight. I promise you that.
Narasimhan, you have a question?
Yeah. Hi. Ajit, this is a technology question actually, and I would like your opinion on it. I have observed that I have a teenager, a daughter. She's around 17, and I have observed for the last year or so, she has been watching all television programs only on YouTube. Okay, now I'm also slowly shifting towards YouTube. I don't watch television. So, what do you think is going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years? Is it the beginning of the end of live television, or is there going to be some kind of convergence? Internet and television is going to kind of become one, and we are going to be having only. What's your idea?
The consumer behavior, such as what we distorted to be experiencing, that in the media trade is called time shift.
Right.
If you really ask her why you're doing this, she'll say, look, if the television companies sit in front of the television tube exactly at 3 minutes past 8 when we start the program, she said nothing else to do at that time. Okay, so
Exactly.
Some of it is time shift when the program starts. The second thing is she wants to pause it and come back into it and leaves her enough time and peace. So it is being able to personally control time which is shifted that. VCRs and DVDs were the original. This is this case for that. You record a program and then you watch it later.
Right.
But that's really much of a headache. You have to sit down and you get some shabby looking versions of it CD. So I think she's just doing time shifting and watching it when it's convenient. So that will always exist. I think think the mainstream audience for television is so large that there are lots of people with nothing to do during the whole day, the whole afternoon, most evenings. So they will prefer, the social, family, common watching of a program, which has its own. Watch it together with friends.
Correct.
Like cricket, I can't see myself ever watching cricket alone. So I'll get my brother and cousins and friends who are there, and we'll sit around, open a bottle of whiskey, comment on, can you see this guy's handkerchief nowadays?
Right.
Can you see this handkerchief? What is he going to bowl next? So I think these things will coexist. These things will coexist. I have no doubt.
Thank you, Ajit.
Okay, so we have a question from Aditya Kuber, which is, do you see independent publishers, including bloggers, actually becoming financially independent in India?
Yes, I do. As you know, I'm a great proponent of blogs and blogging. I think where the innocence of the internet was about blogging, individuals who have ideas can go and express it directly without having to win favor with publishers and editors and things of that kind. That, to me, is the touching thing about the internet. It makes it accessible to everybody. Now, unfortunately, business model has not yet developed, but I'm sure it soon will. I'll tell you the reason why. If you ask yourself very often, if you go to the New York Times to take an example, you go and may look at the columnists first. You read the columnists first, all the Thomas Friedman and others. I keep wondering, what if Thomas decided to have his own blog site? What is he going to do? What is New York Times going to do? Established brand and author of his own right. Many of us, including myself, will go directly to his blog site. So in a way, newspapers and magazines ought to feel threatened. Now, why is blogging not economically sustainable? First of all, in India, because of the scale. You had 300 million broadband users in this country. As a blogger, and if you're doing a good job, you may get an audience of 4 million or 5 million. At that level, at 5 million unique visitors to your blog every month, my ratio would be, you will probably earn about $2 per visitor per year. So that's economics. I think you'll end up being a blogger with maybe $300,000 to $400,000 income. Much more than we would want to do sitting and working for somebody. So I think we're waiting for that scale. And blogging will be both textual, as we have seen so far, but it might be a mixture of text and and video, where you go out and shoot things yourself. So I think ultimately that's where the internet will be. Some people say in recent books that the concentration which of economic power, which television and newspapers tend to concentrate around 2 or 3 big brands. Many of us, the early gray-haired people in the internet, like me, believe that the opposite may be true. Individual bloggers will appear and ad networks will serve them. They don't need to go and sell their ads. They may even have subscriptions. So ultimately, hopefully, dream of an India, we have about 10,000 blogs, beautiful things which you can go and read. And they can publish what they want without any editor telling them what to do. And that's the ideal towards which people like me work towards.
It's already happening in areas like technology and fashion, bloggers.
People like GigaOm, he's an Indian guy who runs that tech site, Techies Read, GigaOm. He's built a very interesting business model. He has his blog and conferences around that blog. And from what I can make out, looking at it from a distance, he's quite a handsome living anyway. But I think it's bound to happen. That's bound to happen.
Oh yeah. You remember Sun magazine, Ajit?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Sorry, he used to work for the magazine called Sun many years back in Delhi, and now he has made a killing with the site.
Right.
Okay, Abhishek, you have a question for Ajit?
Ajit, you want to invest $1 million in digital
Can't
space?
hear you.
Sorry? Digital space in the next 2 years. What would be the 3 ideas you would go for, Ajit?
Oh God, I don't know. It's a trick question. Well, let me give it a shot in any case. I don't know. One would be something which will break the language barrier. Some application which doesn't need English or in the educational day. Something which is voice-based, which can take off, not text-based. I have no idea what it'll do. Okay, I think the simplest one would be, but I don't mean that base level piece. Something which rides on top of that. It's a giant audience. Okay? The second would be something which will be for professionals like lawyers and doctors. For those guys, their practice is too local for them. Something which allows a doctor or a lawyer to practice just beyond his 3 streets. A Bombay lawyer will practice in the 2 streets up and down. So I think the whole group of professionals who are getting very beleaguered. You can see the Bombay hospital intern strike which happened last 3 weeks ago. Doctors are getting they can't make enough money. The average doctor can't make enough coming out of medical college. So similarly, an average lawyer can't make enough. So the term briefless lawyers is very true, and certainly in towns like Bombay. So something which will give them a platform in a real way to get clients and transact businesses for them. So that's two. So third will be something in education, I'm sure, but I don't know what. I'm not sure what it is. Something which will be a platform for people. Many people are trying, something there. Apart from this, there'll be lots in entertainment, any number, but these 3 are likely to be big platform plays which are successful. But guys, all 3 will likely to be implemented on mobile. That's for sure, almost for sure. It won't be. They'll be born in the mobile world, not adapted to it. That's for sure. Anyway, these are. I'm sure I could be completely wrong.
Any more questions for Ajit from anybody? All right, Ajit. I've been wanting to ask you. You are on the. You mentioned I met you last week about the way broadband is going to grow. Some light on for everybody here about that and any other closing.
I think since we all our fates are in some way large broadband user base in India, I think it's useful to understand why the internet user base is not growing as it should. I think part of the reason is broadband. Even let's say it's likely to happen, but in mobile, if it has to happen, you need underground, below ground. When you came, Abhishek, that the way the cell phone system works, when I speak to you, it catches the air, through the air it goes to a cell tower, then it goes down the cell tower by wire, and it goes underground one cell tower base station to another, then it goes up the other tower and then comes back to broadcast to air. So when you say 3G and 4G, the only part which is speeded up is the air to your connection. You need high-speed fiber cables drawn between. In Bombay City, less than 20% of the base stations today are connected by. Today, the broadband or data revenues do not make much sense. If you're a major operator, your market cap is dependent on your voice revenues almost completely. And how many subscribers you can brag about, etc. He has to invest an order of magnitude about 100,000 crores in India to put this fiber underground. And the only people who can do this kind of scale of investment is the government. They are in principle ready to do that, and they've set aside 20,000 crores to start that project. A new agency called the National Fiber Agency, I believe it's called, has been formed, and they put the 20,000 crores inside there, and they're starting the painful process of digging the ground and putting fiber cable inside there and closing the ground, which includes getting permissions from innumerable public and private entities. But this is like building roads. Only government can build roads. The private sector can't. So I'd say put all your weight behind it and it happens, and then you'll see the broadband infrastructure then take off, because then people like small cable operators will jump into providing the retail end of the broadband service. Some companies will provide, the retail end of the telecom service. So this needs to be done. So behind it.
Great. Thanks a lot, Ajit, for this session, and I'm, fairly enlightening, and I've been able to address questions. There were some more questions which are coming in, but I think we are. Thanks everybody here. Again, thanks a lot, Ajit.
Thanks guys. Thanks Abhishek. Thanks to all of you.